It's a lot more involved than just hacking in. We've got infostealers that we're seeing in the hosting industry. So it goes down the track of infostealers and how infostealers play a part in cybersecurity and affects, all businesses. Okay, that's working. Okay, who am I? I'm Robbie Abraham. I'm the cyber threat operations lead for a company called Newfold Digital. People don't know that name, and that's fine. But you'll know our brands. We own Crazy Domains, Digital Pacific, HostGator, Bluehost, Domain.com, Web.com. Roughly about 400 different brands of ours run the internet, roughly 5 to 10% of the internet. What my title means is, people hear cyber threat operations. What is that? I get to read reports, I get to play with intelligence, and then I take all my reports and go hunting. And being on the cutting edge of the internet is a really fun place to be because you get to see stuff that normal people won't get to see. We see nation states trying new malware. So it gives us that insight of doing that. In my spare time, I do CTFs. Recently competed in the Huntress CTF that was celebrating October for cyber security awareness. I'm a massive PC gamer, playing Battlefield 6 at the moment and Ark Raiders. So if you play those games, reach out. I'm happy to play. And one thing I see in common in IT is not many people get out and touch grass. We're always in the office, right? So this year I decided to take up archery, and that's my way of touching grass. And last week I shot my first game at 50 meters, and I got a 237 out of 300. So I was pretty impressed with that for first time doing that range. Oops, 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 oops. I jumped way ahead. So today's talk, again, I'm going to demonstrate how hackers get hold of stolen credentials. And my example is with infostealers. We're going to look at how hackers, and we'll take the role of the hacker, use Burp Suite to validate a credential. We also will automate the process and look at the process of creating an email address for attack purposes. And we'll upload our fictitious phishing site that we're going to attack a business. So disclaimer, I'm here on my personal capacity as a threat hunter and a researcher. I do not represent my company today, but all my research is done being a threat hunter in my company. So firstly, let's talk about cPanel. Hands up who knows what cPanel is. See, a lot of people know us. cPanel has been around for 1996. What we see is cPanel still is the most relevant player in the hosting industry, even though you've got the players like AWS, OCI, and GCP coming into the mix, but still traditional hosting is still being ran on cPanel. Roughly 7% of the world's internet still today is running on cPanel. Hands up if you know what LAMP means. Awesome. So LAMP Stack is a traditional hosting platform, which is Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP. You have, like, if you look at WordPress, Magento, Joomla, they all run on that platform. And its main competitor in the market still to today is Plesk, which is a Windows variant of a hosting platform. Again, has a significant foothold, but not as big as cPanel. So hackers are no longer hacking in, but logging in. This is a common thing that we're seeing across all industries. What we are noticing is the skill level of a hacker is dropping. If we go back to 20 years, I'm 43 in a week and a bit. If I go back to when I was 20, to be an elite hacker, to be able to pull off anything gnarly, like Hack the Gibson, if everyone knows that reference, you need to have OS internals, you need to know networking, you need to know scripting, you'll need to have a lot of experience, and that we're not seeing in today's hackers. What we're seeing is Do you have a credit card? Do you have some crypto? Because there's a lot of hackers out there who are making services to allow you to purchase and do these attacks. So we are seeing in the hosting industry, script kiddies just coming along, buying a kit offline and putting on someone's shared hosting account and testing it out. So I'm not the best with statistics, so I actually wrote these down. But the notable hacks over the past 5 years was Colonial Pipeline. The group behind that was DarkSide, which is a Russian-based hacking group. The initial access for them was attacking using an inactive VPN account that they managed to get a stolen credential for. The date happened in 2021, and the outcome was 75 BTC, Bitcoin, was paid to gain access back to Colonial Pipeline. So for people who don't remember that attack, that shut down the east coast of America. Almost created a nation state, like a national incident where Russia and America almost went, people would say go to war, but it did make a massive thing because it did cut off fuel supply to the east coast. We have CNA Financial Group. The group behind this is unknown. The initial access was breached, was reported by a fake browser update from a legitimate website. When that browser update was installed, it ran a keylogger. Grab credentials out of your browser, and we hear this all the time, infostealers, and that's what it did. What they saw was the credential was stolen, it was used to log into their network, and the outcome for them was CNA had to pay $40 million in ransom just to get access to their network, because they were locked out, they could not do business. And as you know, especially in the financial sector, if you're not doing business, you're losing money straight away. We have Medibank. Who knows what happened to Medibank? Hands up. So Medibank got hacked a couple of years ago. It's all over the news. Rebel, again, another Russia. You'll see there's a very common theme here. Russia likes hacking Western companies, but not Eastern companies. They logged in, again, stolen credential, bought on a brokerage site. And the account they logged into was an account that did not have MFA on it. They got into the email account and they started looking at what they could do. They started sending out additional emails and they start phishing data. We have Australia has a very strong guidelines on not paying ransom. And Medibank stayed by that. What Revel did, or Ievil, however you want to say it, started releasing data. They started with something very easy. Let's say, who has alcohol dependencies? Let's put that out there. Now, let's get a little bit more seedy. Who has had an abortion? To the point, the last thing they dropped to try and push that money, and all they was asking was $10 million. And their argument, and this did not get publicized, I actually read the emails because I actually had access to the breaches, was they asked for $1 per customer. So you can imagine if the media got hold of that, and a normal person will go, my data's only worth $1. Like, why don't you just pay that? I'll pay you the $1. I don't want my data released. The last thing they released, HIV patients who are positive. And it's something that no one wants out there. And finally, Uber. Uber is the initial access for social engineering that caused an engineer to accept an MFA token. Hands up, who knows what MFA bombing is? It's the effect of sending multiple MFA requests to the point where you're overloaded and you're like, just shut up. You know? And they accepted that, right? And what that done for, they got access. Now, Uber was smart. They come out and said publicly, no data was stolen. Again, no one also came out and said, hey, we got Uber's data. So who's telling the truth? Okay, so some statistics. This is taken from Flashpoint's report. 1 in 5 breaches are related to stolen credentials. Another statistic they gave was 32 billion credentials were compromised in 2024 alone. We're seeing an increase of that happening over and over. And this is going to increase 10 times over the next couple of years, and you will see this. Like I said, a surge of 160% since last year. And finally, 75% of stolen credentials came from information stealers. Woohoo! Makes my talk relevant. The risks and impacts of stolen credentials. So long dwell time on resetting passwords. The average of a password being detected was 90 days. And that's going to get kind of quicker. But what we're seeing in the market is if you're not monitoring for your own passwords or your own access, how are you going to find out? Is someone's going to go, hey, did you get hacked? I found your email. I don't think so. You know, so being proactive on like using, have I been pawned? You know, using other threat intelligence out there, scanning your email addresses, looking for that stuff. The other thing is with infostealers, people are not actually publicizing these all the way to the dark web and those sites because there's just so much data. And we'll dive into a screenshot of what it looks like. Undetected access. If you caught Adam Cass's talk earlier, talking about home proxies, we are seeing this day in, day out. What hackers will do, and again, in the next slides, you'll see there is a file that says user information. Infostealers are collecting your location, to the pinpoint of your city you're in. So hands up, who knows what geofencing is? So the idea of geofencing is when you log in, you are expected to be in a certain location. So let's say I log into Sydney, then all of a sudden I jump on a VPN and log into Singapore. How can I travel from Sydney to Singapore in 2 seconds? Can't. So geofencing, the idea is, you're staying within it. So hackers know this, and what they'll do is they'll use home proxies to mimic your behavior. They'll log in so it becomes undetected. It just looks like you logging in. And how many times do you use your mobile phone? You're at work, you jump in your home Wi-Fi, your work Wi-Fi. You leave, you want to do some more work, you're on the train, so you connect to your mobile hotspot. You work on a big project, get home, you have to jump back onto Wi-Fi. So you've just done 3 IP changes. You've gone from your office to your mobile phone, now to your home. So geofencing would look at that and go, well, it's all in the same location, so it's fine. So a threat actor, I see Robbie's in Sydney, I'm going to use a home proxy in Sydney and hopefully nothing gets picked up. And again, weaponizing of stolen credentials, and that's what today's talk is about. So infostealers are the new credential stealers. Infostealers or credential stealers are the new hacker's goldmine. Like I said, the skill level is dropping. You just need to pay a small fee to get access to these logs. And as long as you know how to kind of code a little bit, you can start writing your own password and start looking for certain credentials. Like in this, this is from Daisy Logs. And as you can see, we have passwords, we have computer info, like I said, tracking where you are, Outlook accounts, Outlook cookies. So you don't even need a username and password. You're already authenticated. You're in Sydney, I just take your cookie, use a home proxy, log into your account, done. And again, your passwords and crypto wallet. Luma Stealer is known for taking screenshots. So what they're trying to do is get you in compromising situations. So let's say you're at home, you're getting dressed. Then I can blackmail you, but I've got a photo of you, in a compromising position. Again, it takes all your files too. It downloads your files, stores them on the web, and all your text documents. So let's say you're working on a very important project and you're a law firm and you're doing it from home. And all of a sudden I get that file and I see that there's crypto addresses in there because it's a crypto scam that's happened. I'm going to log in and steal all that crypto before you ever know, right? And this is the type of stuff we have seen in the industry. So how credentials are being traded? What we're seeing is still Telegram is one of the main sites. And the example I've got up here, screenshots are terrible, I'm sorry. F Society hands out free cPanel username and passwords. Breach Forums used to be a really popular site, but now Breach Forums doesn't exist thanks to the FBI. And what we're seeing is another website called elitebase.la, which is a surface web website ran out of Russia. Very big disclaimer on site. Do not post anything that is Russian. Like I said earlier, Russians are all happy about hacking the Western countries. Leave Eastern alone. So we are seeing that, and in my example, I wish it was a little bit better, but as you can see, 150 cPanel, more cPanel, MX log, cPanel log. So, and these are, you don't need to, like, some of you don't need to pay a subscription for, you just log in and download them, right? Sometimes they claim to be vetted, sometimes they are not. So today, I've set up a VPS. These are legitimate credentials, by the way. These are my credentials. So yes, bad object for me, but I'm just going to give you an example of how the data is being shared on the dark web, right? Can anyone see a kind of common theme? It's all about cats, right? So yes, simply the domain name / cPanel, or sometimes you'll use the port 2083, and then the username and password. So we'll go into the first step of validating your credential. Oh, it's terrible. It looked good on my computer. Okay, so what we're trying to do with Burp Suite, we're going to try and attempt to log in. So we're taking a credential and you're assuming it's good, right? So we open up Burp Suite, which is a proxy tool, allows us to interact and collect those data. We hit the endpoint being login, question mark, login underscore only equals 1. And the username and password is in plain text. Again, when it's sent over the wire, it's encrypted, but because you're using proxying, you're intercepting on your computer, it's unencrypted. So you can see how the data looks. And this is going to help us when we start scripting our program. So there we go. Awesome, so that's better, you can read that. Okay, so we successfully logged in, woohoo! What we are seeing is we are getting the CP sesh token, which is a session token. And we also, out of the cookies, we pull out our session cookie. It's very important. cPanel operates in a certain way where there is 2 keys to turn. It's like, you know, nuclear power submarine. You have to turn both of them to make it work. You need both to work, right? To access any endpoint. If you don't have them, you just would fail. And we'll go through examples of how we implement this. So taking the CP sesh and the cookie, we can start interacting with the website and with cPanel. So now let's script it. Awesome, and that's a good screenshot. It looks good. Okay, so what we're going to do, this is written in Python. Who knows Python? Who knows a bit of Python? Awesome, so I'm not going to lose people. Great. We import our libraries. We're using requests. The reason why we use requests, it allows us to interact with the web browser. What's really interesting is we use JSON because, again, we need to send data. The data that cPanel expects is in JSON form. We can also use CSV because later on we're going to read our database of our stolen credentials. URL lib to do additional. We have random because we're generating a password. And again, we import strings, right? Because we're the threat actor, because we're taking on the threat actor's behavior now, we have our phishing payload that we set up called fish.zip. We want to create an email address called tech support because, again, we're going to launch a phishing attack against our bank, Feline Bank, another cat reference. And so we want tech support, right? People are not going to pay attention to the email address sometimes. Our phishing name is Feline Bank and their index file. So I set up a small random definition. And the reason why I asked to just generate a new password every time I read it, I don't need to reuse up that big chunk of code. I can just call the definition. And for our cases, in this case, I set the username, password, domain, and user agent. Okay, for the Python developers, why are we setting a user agent? Who's used request before? Hands up. So if you don't use requests, when it gets triggered, it shows up as Python requests. So as a blue teamer, you're looking for anything that says Python request and you know it's a bot or it's a script. And you can go, no, not allowed in my farm. So we change the user agent to hide our persistence. So we start running our web request. Again, we're setting our user agent so we can spoof the user agent. We're setting our payload. Like I said, we're using Python, we're using JSON, and we send the user and the password as user and password. And we're simply doing a post request here. And we're calling the endpoint, like we said earlier, which is login question mark, login equals only, underscore only equals 1. We need to set our headers, we need to set our data payload, and we verify the SSL. And the reason why we're verifying the SSL is you don't want your script to fail if their SSL has expired. Because if that happens, then it might be good credentials and you don't hack their account. So we skip validating the SSL. What's, sorry for the screenshot, but you see the same data that we got from the burp suite. So you know that we're logging in through our script. Now we're building our authentication, right? So we kind of start cutting around the data here. As you can see, we call JSON to import the data from the response, and then we start carving it out. So we are getting the security token out of the JSON, and again, we're taking out the CP session cookies, right? For simplicity's sake, and I've done this for all the steps, I printed out the outcome so you can see what we're getting. So again, we get our CP session ID, and we get our cookie with CP session equals. So now, like I said, we want to automate this. Now we know we can log in, and we are able to log in. So how do we take a single login to be able to loop it? So what we're going to do is we're going to use open and import our CSV. So we read credentials as, creds, and we open up a CSV reader and we start reading the rows, right? So simply domain, username, and password, and we start passing that data. So configuring our endpoints and building our authorized URL. Has it come up yet? There we go. We still do a bit more splitting because we need to cut out the CP session cookie and replace the semicolon with a blank space. And we do a split, and we split the equals. The reason why, we need to convert that CP session and the session token, the session cookie, into a JSON format. And the easiest way is to just split it. There's probably other ways to do it, but for me, this is the way I like doing it. And again, as you can see, we call CP session, and then we call the token. The authorized URL is simply cPanel URL, so the URL plus the security token that we collected. And now, for simplicity's sake, we set up some endpoints. And we got add pop to add our email address. We got deploy phish, and we got persistence, right? So again, we're going to create our email address because that's what we want to do, and we're going to upload our zip file to extract on that server. And again, we need to create a token, and we'll go through that when I come to that slide. So building our mailbox payload, it's very straightforward. Very similar to what we did. We start stripping array elements like the port or the /cPanel, and we take out the HTTPS. What we want is just the domain name itself. And so we get the domain name. Again, the function we set up earlier, I call random gen to get the password. And we do email address, domain, email, password, and quota, and send welcome email. We set it to 0. There's no use of us sending a welcome email to an email that's we're setting up for phishing. So we turn that off. And when we run the script, one thing you're going to notice in the post request, compared to the first post request, we're now including cookies. Because that cookie, what we had, if we don't include it, it's going to tell us we're unauthorized. Remember the 2 keys? So this is our way that we implement the 2 key turn. So we call our cookies, our headers, and our data. And printing the response, we get told, hey, they replaced the @ with a plus, but tech support at fasten the furry, and there was no errors, and now you've got an email address set up. So setting up the phishing payload, very similar. I put a time sleeper in there. For Python developers, why am I doing that? Yeah, And again, if you're looking at quick post requests, you can tell it's a bot. If I spread them out every 1 minute, especially on a shared server, I'm going to blend in with additional traffic. So just for simplicity's sake, I used 2 seconds. Public underscore HTML in cPanel is your normal place where you store all your files. So we set that as our path. We call our path and we set overwrite to be 1. The reason why we do that is, let's say we hack a site and then it gets taken down. Our phishing page stays up, but Feline Bank updated their login portal. We want to stay relevant, so we make a new phishing page and we launch it again. So we're going to overwrite our old phishing page to upload the new phishing page. Again, we call our endpoint and we read a binary file. So we read the zip as a binary, and that's the easiest way for us to transmit it over the web. And we do a response, and the data we get told, and it's a very long string, so I had to cut it in half, is we get told it's been uploaded, there's no errors, and that it succeeded to upload our zip. So our zip's there now. The next step is to extract our zip. So cPanel had, when I was writing this, I'm like, how can I do this? cPanel does not seem to have a web interface that allows me to do this. Like, I was trying to replicate the same ways I do it as a real person, and it wouldn't work. And so, as a good researcher, you dive down the documentation. And I realized JSON API is the way that we're going to do it. So we use JSON API. We call the file man and the file operation. We set a file list to 1, multi-form to 1. The operation is extract. The undefined metadata is undefined. Again, I don't understand why they want metadata, but I guess if you're uploading legitimate files, you probably want to, especially if you're doing automated, you probably want to add some metadata to say why you uploaded the file. But in our case, we don't. The source files is our path and our payload, and the destination is /. So for Linux, that's going to be the directory we're in. And as you recall, we set public underscore HTML as our default directory. So now this gets us to building our persistence. So, hypothetical, I hacked your server. What's your first thing you got to do? Rotate a password, right? First thing is, you notice there's a phishing page. I'm going to go, well, clearly delete the file and rotate your password, right? So what we are seeing in the industry is people are now creating API tokens in cPanel. Not many people know about this. I only discovered this year through another investigation that we saw botnet coming in, and we'll change the password and they're still operating the botnet. I'm like, how are they doing this? And we realized they're actually calling the API. And the API was just a 4-digit code, a name, and it's very simple. Well, all we have to do is call the endpoint and say the name is going to be whatever we want. So simplicity, I said test. Again, we send it off, send the cookies, and when we go print it out, we get our token. So my script, if I was to change it, I can say, okay, does the logins work? No? Let's try the API key. If it works, I can redeploy my phishing and my script. And now we execute the script. So ideally, I wrote it so it had a nice little display that prints out that people can understand what's going on. As you can see, we've logged in successfully. It tells us the domain we logged into. We've created our email address. We've set up our phishing campaign from Feline Bank, and now we have our API token. What we can do is extract that into our CSV and then launch further attacks. So, okay, so we set up tech support so we can do tech support scams. Hey, your company, or we could do sales. Hey, we updated our credit card. Start paying bills into this account now to all the vendors. So that's what we do here. And sorry. Now, how do you detect this behavior? cPanel is really good at logging everything, right? But you need to be admin. You can't access this without admin permissions. Oh, come on, slide. There we go. cPanel, user local cPanel access logs is going to be your friend as a blue teamer. What that's going to give you is all the access logs that's going to happen to cPanel, all your logins, all your successful, all your and all the behavior. And right now, as you can see on the screen, it's only post requests, and that is naughty. You see that, you should scream and go, reset that password, that account's been compromised. It's a bot. But people might go, but it's a legitimate user. So why would you think that's a bot, even using a legitimate user agent? Because it's only post requests. A normal user would have a lot of GET requests. And we'll get into, and I'll show you a screenshot now of what a normal user would look like. That's doing the same communication. So, I was too quick for the slide. Yeah, there's a lot of GET requests. Yeah, hey, GET requests. As you can see, same behavior, but a lot more traffic. Who knows what a false flag is? Have you heard false flags? So as a malicious actor, what we want to do is, if you look at a lot of these resources, they are calling just a random resource in cPanel. So we can start adding these into our script, giving false flags that, hey, we are a legitimate user, and hide it within our post requests. Again, so when you start searching the username, even if we've done it over a 5-hour period to do our whole attack, all you need to do is just do a grep against the username, and we'll have all that post request and then go. So by adding false flags as a threat actor, and I know I should be telling you this, but adding false flags as a threat actor, you're going to stay undetected. And we do see this being used in code. By the way, all these examples I'm giving you, I've seen in different types of attacks in our platform. We've seen people setting up email addresses. We have developed internal tools to all track this now and look at behavior and doing behavioral detections on this type of behavior. So we're coming to the end of my talk. How can we protect ourselves from infostealers? Reputable antivirus. Infostealers are now being picked up by a lot of antiviruses. What we're seeing is with the advent of AI, everyone loves AI. Malware is being refactored on a within 12 hours. If you went back 5 years ago, not even 5 years ago, 2 years ago, for a ransomware vendor to write new ransomware, it was 5 to 7 days. We are seeing now ransomware being refactored every 12 hours. With AI getting more quicker and more intelligent, we're going to see that changing very quickly, and especially with a quantum computer. We need to stay ahead of the game, and we need to build on that as the threat actors are doing, because they're doing it before us. Again, good password hygiene. I had a discussion with, I'm doing a talk tomorrow on threat hunting, and I'm going to discussion with my colleagues about good password hygiene. And the question that came up is, if you have a password reset every 30 days, what's the odds of your users are going to go, fluffy dog, number 1. Next month, fluffy dog, number 2, number 3, number 4, right? So what you need to do, especially in orgs, is have it set up that you don't, and have a rule that you can't use similar words. It has to be changed. Again, enforce using passphrases, not passwords. Hands up, who knows what a passphrase is? Awesome. Passphrase, simply 4 or 5 different words that has some meaning to you that you can string together. Makes it very hard for hackers to brute force, while your standard 8 to 16-bit passwords can be cracked these days. Two-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication, recommend installing it everywhere. Again, with cPanel, you could do the same thing, and we kind of do that in certain areas. What it does is, you're trying to do this attack, it's not going to work. It's not going to work at all. And a password manager. Yes, a lot of password managers like LastPass, and a lot of them have been hacked over time. But I think, and this is a very controversial comment, when a password company gets hacked, they know they really screwed the pooch, because who's going to trust them? So what we're seeing now is they are spending more money in building a better project, right? So I still use LastPass myself. I'm happy to admit that, even though they've been compromised twice, because I've had talks with the developers and they've outlined all the changes they made. And if you look at what they've done 5 years ago to what they've done now, their R&D has increased like tenfold because they know what's happened to them and they are trying to build that reputation back. And that is my pretty face and my QR code. Thank you for listening to me talk. Does anyone have questions? Yes.
What about your recommendations to protect your cPanel servers?
Two-factor authentication. Like I said, if you enable two-factor on every cPanel account, my attack won't work because it's going to ask you to re-authenticate yourselves. Again, making sure you have AV. There is a lot of AV for Linux now, and you can install that, which can kind of pick this up. And again, looking at behavior, doing regularly spot checks of your logs, looking for Python requests, looking for behavior, looking for users who are only doing post requests, because that's going to show potentially behavior. Yes?
Sorry, that's all the time we have.
We could talk outside.
Apologies. Can we have a huge round of applause for that?